Grab your popcorn, find your seats, and get ready, because this episode of the Cinema Spotlight is about to begin. Subscribe if you're new, and please, enjoy the show. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Cinema Spotlight. This is the show where we dissect all things, movies, TV, and everything in between. I am your host and self-proclaimed media expert, James Senna. This episode is certainly a unique one. If you've been following the show on Instagram, you may have seen that I've needed to change a couple things about this episode amidst the ongoing writer and actor strikes. In turn, it's just you and me today. No guest, but a little bit more on that. You'll see. A little surprise, but have no fear. We'll still have a great time and hopefully we'll learn a thing or two together. We're going to start things off with a tell-all about the SAG-AFTRA strike, followed by a segment of I'd Watch That, and we'll cap off the episode with another installation of My Movie. This episode of the Cinema Spotlight is about to begin, and of course, here's an official spoiler warning for any and all content discussed here today, and if you wish to skip around to avoid spoilers, you can find timestamps in the description both on YouTube and Spotify for your convenience. Although, I will say, there's probably not a lot of spoilers in this episode, so feel free to watch the whole thing through if you so choose. That said, let's shine a spotlight on the ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike. Don't panic. Okay? I know what you might be thinking to yourself. Where was the Oscar watch? No, the Oscar watch theme. I wanted to sing along with the Oscar watch. Oscar watch. Don't worry, you will be able to sing along, and I'll be singing along right there with you next episode. But just this once, there's going to be no Oscar watch today. It'll be back next episode, of course, but there's something a bit more relevant and pressing happening in Hollywood right now that I personally feel like is worth talking about. Full transparency, I've been stressed about the appropriate way to discuss the strikes because my show to this point has been rooted in opinion and less so fact. But I also feel passionately that discourse on this matter is super important, and just having an overall understanding of what's going on. So, I've asked for some help from my friends. This is going to take the place of the guest today. We're all posing questions about the ongoing strikes, and live on the spot, we're going to conduct a little investigation. I'm going to do some answering of some general questions, and trust me, I am far from knowledgeable on all of this. So I figured then rather than just regurgitating info that I found, let's take the opportunity to learn a thing or two together. So I want to thank everyone for their contributions and support on this from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate it, and this is something that does mean a lot to me, so I wanted to be able to cover this in the most tasteful way that I possibly could. Maybe some of the voices you'll even recognize, and the voices? Well, let's dive right in with the first question. This first question is going to come from one of my besties.
Hey James, I was wondering if you could go over what SAG and the AMPTP are. What's the history between those two organizations? How did they come to be?
So let's start with what is SAG-AFTRA. So what does it stand for? It's the Screen Actors Guild, and it's the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. It is, in a nutshell, an American labor union consisting of roughly 160,000 people working in the entertainment industry, such as writers, actors, media professionals, among many others. What does it do exactly? Well, according to their official mission statement, SAG-AFTRA is committed to organizing all work done under our jurisdictions, negotiating the best wages, working conditions, and health and pension benefits, preserving and expanding members' work opportunities, vigorously enforcing our contracts, and protecting members against unauthorized use of their work. A little piece of that we're going to touch on a little bit later when it comes to artificial intelligence. Now, what is the AMPTV? Because that's definitely something involved here. It is the Allegiance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the trade group that was formed to represent the studios, broadcast networks, and streaming services in labor negotiations with unions. And if you're wondering what type of companies falls under this, that includes the likes of Netflix, Warner Brothers, Disney, and a few others. Now, what is the history behind the strike? I mean, well, let's go back quite a few years now. So before the strikes going on today, the last SAG strike happened in 1960. It's kind of a while back, and they erupted due to the issue of residuals. That was a really big deal back in the day. SAG wanted percentage payments for actors in all films sold to TV dating back to 1948. So the turning point for TV was that year in 1948, as well as all films produced going forward. That's basically what a residual is. I'm not going to go into just the textbook definitions of some of these things, but the residuals in the modern day is basically like if you go and you watch a TV show on Netflix, the people working on that project, they're getting paid considerably less for their project over time, where realistically you could go today and go and watch Stranger Things and it's almost like it was posted yesterday, basically. That's not how the payment works, and I think that that's something that's definitely going to be talked about. So that being said, I'm curious how that translates to the modern day. So according to an article from Backstage that I have found here, here's what the desired results are from the strike. Here's like the 4 main points that are brought up and being discussed and trying to come to some sort of agreement on. So let's look at this together. The first thing is better compensation and benefits. So that's generally it's pretty just better pay, basically, right? I mean, hey, we all work, or most of us work, I think. Who doesn't want more money? I mean, right? Like, let's be honest. But a friend of the show and a member of SAG had this to say on the matter. I reached out and they had this to say. Everyone believes that actors make a great living, but the average income for a SAG actor is $40,000. And I'm assuming by 40,000 yearly salary. That's 31% below the national average, which is, in a lot of situations, not really enough. It's not enough. So let's talk a little bit more about residuals. Current residual payments don't reflect the value of member contributions. According to the union, they quote-unquote undercut by inflation and by a streaming ecosystem through which producers pay less residual income than traditional exhibition models. Now that is a lot of mumbo jumbo. That's a lot of word salad. Basically, I mean, it's exactly what we just talked about with residuals. It's not correctly represented exactly how much actors are paid for residuals, so they're hoping to get more from that, as they should, because if it's different than just you're getting paid for this one-time thing, instead of, okay, well, now because of the rise in streaming services that has been happening, I think we all have seen that Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus, all these different services are here. They're bigger, and I was gonna say bigger and better than ever, but I guess they technically are, right? So it's sort of a new world where residuals are not up to date with, or how much actors are getting paid for residuals and how much everyone involved is getting paid. It's not caught up with the times. I feel like that needs to be updated, or that is at least what this is saying, is that they feel like it needs to be updated and it needs to be matched appropriately. The third one here, and I hinted at it a little bit earlier, this is generative AI. So the union is requesting that the AMPTP provide protections for members against misuse of artificial intelligence, as well as a definition of acceptable use of the technology. And then once again, a statement from friend of the show had this to say on the matter. They wanted to pay a background actor 1 day's wage of $150, scan their face, to then use forever without pay. Now, needless to say, the modern day development of AI has provided many instances of saying, is that even okay? Should that be allowed? And I think it goes without saying that doesn't sound very good. It really doesn't. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because on this show I always try to stay neutral to the best that I can. But I think that since AI and ChatGPT is such a new thing, I think we're still in the midst of trying to find that balance of how do we use AI in a way that is constructive, and how do we enhance things that we are already using? How do you use it to enhance the performances of the actors or enhance the the job that the writers do rather than replace? I think enhancing instead of replacing, I think, is the goal from all the way around. I think that that's what this agreement is working on. They're trying to find that balance of, okay, to what capacity, or in what capacity is the use of AI acceptable? That's something that is a conversation that's currently being had, and I think that that's a valid conversation to be had, because again, it is a brand new thing. So checking in with each other and just being like, okay, this is where we draw the line. I think that that is a very important thing for the future of filmmaking and the future of all these projects. Now, the last thing is self-tapes, and I actually hadn't heard this before I saw this little tidbit, so I'm going to read it and try to give my thoughts on it. They're saying self-tapes. So without regulation regarding self-taped auditions, SAG alleges that performers currently face an unfairly difficult casting process. The shift to burdensome and unreasonably demanding self-taped auditions means that our members are working harder than ever, forced to take on audition costs that have always been the responsibility of casting and production. So this is all coming from Backstage.com. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they want to make the audition process a little bit less complicated, and I think that that is also totally fair. Being an actor myself, or I like to think I'm an actor in I'm a little bit of a prodigy myself, to be honest. No, but the audition process is a long and difficult process, and I think it's a very reasonable thing to be like, okay, let's make this a lot less freaking ridiculous, So I think that that's totally valid. So these are the reasons why the strike is happening. These are some of the results that we're hoping for, and different negotiations being met. Now, next question.
Hey, James. I was just wondering, how drastically do you think the strike is going to affect upcoming TV and movie release dates?
Okay, so how drastically do I think the strike will affect upcoming movies and TV release dates? So, I think... Okay, I believe the effect that the strike has on this is directly correlated to how long the strike lasts. So I think if the strike were to end tomorrow, I think that, realistically speaking, I don't know if it'll affect the cinema industry and the movie making. I don't think it'll affect it that much. Definitely a little bit, but not that much. But that being said, we've already seen a handful of projects that have been delayed due to the strike, such as Dune 2, The Color Purple, Challengers, which, shout out to anyone. I have a couple friends who were actually background extras in that movie. I have a whole other story about how I almost was in that movie, but we're just uncovering old wounds. But also Deadpool 3 being another one that was delayed recently due to the strike.
Just a quick question, but how long do you think the writer strikes will last?
How long do I think the writer strike will last? I think, again, I said the effect that the strike has on the industry depends on how long it lasts. So how long will it last? I think it's hard to know for sure. I mean, it's really a matter of, when will the AMPTV put forward an offer that SAG deems as fair and agreeable? It could easily be as early as tomorrow. If they were to say, okay, we have an offer for you, and it's just a really fair offer, I think SAG would probably be like, oh, bet. like sweet, let's shake hands and let's make this, let's end this. Or it could take much longer. So if we look to the past, I have here a little bit of a little tidbit. The aforementioned strike of 1960 lasted 148 days, which is 21 weeks. So that's roughly half a year. It was about 6 months, give or take, a little bit more, a little less. That could have a really big effect on the industry, and it could push a lot of projects back. And, I think that just goes into our next question.
I like to consume a lot of TV shows and movies, and I was wondering how this affects my viewership? And also, does my viewership affect the writer's strike?
How does it affect, in essence, like our ability to consume our favorite content, and how does our viewership affect the writer's strike? So here's one thing I will say. As of right now, and I have double checked this, there is no call from SAG to boycott any streaming services or film screenings. You can go and see, if you really want to, Oppenheimer, Barbie. You can see whatever movie you want to see in theaters. There's nothing from SAG calling people to boycott these movies. So especially to the average movie watcher or TV show binger, the strike in theory shouldn't really affect your viewer experience. What this will affect, though, is the time it takes for new projects to be made. So here's just a little prediction from on my end. I think that in the late 2023, early 2024, maybe even middle of 2024, there's going to be a noticeable chunk missing from release schedules based on things being pushed or delayed. I think there will be a gap in theaters where it's like, oh wow, only like 2 movies are in the theaters. Like, why isn't there a lot more like there usually is? I mean, this would be why. This would be why. That is sort of the summation of what the strike is like why it's happening, what is trying to be made of it. How will this affect this show? Because I feel like there's this thing called scabbing, which I'm not gonna get into a whole thing of that on my soapbox, but let's just say scabbing is not great, and especially for me, trying to be someone who is eventually down the line I want to be an entertainer. That's sort of, I've made it known on this show that my goal is to entertain everyone, and I don't want to potentially put myself in a scenario where I can't accomplish that. So next episode, I will be resuming Oscar watches, but at least throughout the duration of the strike, I will be shifting towards covering projects that are not currently being struck. So what does that include? What might that look like? That includes A24 movies. Maybe I can even do a review of The Whale in retrospect. I don't know if anyone was asking for it, but it's one of those movies where I saw it last year ahead of the Oscars, and I was like, it did really touch my heart, and it's such a I don't know, there's something about it where it's like it just affected me so emotionally, but for some weird reason I had it in my head that it wasn't going to win an Oscar, so I didn't do an episode on it. I didn't have time to do an Oscar watch for it, and then sure enough it went on to win 2 Oscars, so you know, what the hell. But you know, maybe I'll go back and do a little review in retrospect for that. Independent film projects are something that are totally fair game. And potentially I want to do some segments on topics that are movie adjacent, such as films I would like to see made. Maybe things like we could do a draft room for the best movie snacks. I think that could be a very polarizing topic. So we'll have a lot of fun, and we still have a lot of options of things to talk about. Now, speaking of independent films, in the following segment, we're going to show some love to some viewer-recommended indie films. So if you're in need of some new stuff to check out, don't go away, because we'll be right back. Which movies do you want mentioned on the Oscar Watch? Let us know on Instagram at @the_cinema_spotlight, and drop a follow while you're there to get updates, behind the scenes details, and to participate in polls following each episode. Now, let's get back to the show. There are so many independent films that exist, and many of these are super unique projects that we just simply don't get enough of. And today I'm going to give some appreciation to a few of them. I put out a poll on Instagram asking for some favorites among all of you. But first and foremost, I think before we really dive in, I think it's important that we just ask the question, what is an indie film, and how do you identify one? And simply put, it's a film, short film, or I guess even TV shows, specific ones, that were made outside the major film studio system. So, and also by my own observation, a lot of these films tend to be super outside the box, in quotes, like in nature. Ideas that may not be greenlit by major studios due to the general idea of said film being a risk on how well it'll be received, whether it'll be for commercial reasons or simply you put that film in a box of like, that idea is weird as fuck. Like, so a lot of independent films don't get enough time in the spotlight because a lot of the time they're super niche, or something that I've noticed is that a lot of independent films are very strong with dialogue, but they also tend to be a little bit more dialogue heavy. So when we go through some of these, you're gonna see what I mean. But the first one, we have to talk about this. The first one, and I don't know if I've said this on the show before, my favorite movie of all time is Good Will Hunting. And according to my research, it counts as an indie film. So, and it definitely falls into that construct. I mean, if you look at it from a very general standpoint, it's about a kid who is misguided and receives guidance on how to better himself. And a lot of that is through the conversations that they have with Matt Damon and Robin Williams. And if you have never seen Good Will Hunting, you absolutely have to see this. It is my favorite movie. It got me through some hard times. It is a very good movie. Let's dive into the web. Let's call out some notable films that I have seen and that I would recommend. And then we're going to go through, and I have a list of viewer recommended indie films that I think that, you know, if you're curious, go and give them a watch. So, let's jump right into it. So, when we're looking at indie films, right? These are films that sometimes, not in all cases, but in some cases, are definitely lower budget because they're being made from a single person usually. So some of these, let's see, I'm just scrolling through and I'll let you know if I see anything that I've seen. Okay, Before Sunset is a big one. I don't remember, is that the first one in the trilogy? There's like I think it's by Richard Linklater. There's a trilogy about this couple and they meet somewhere in Europe. I forget exactly where it was. It could have been France. I'm not exactly sure. And they basically just hang out the entire day, and the whole movie is just these two just going and hanging out. That's what the entire movie is, and there's something so engaging about that. And it's if you love movies where it's a very relaxed, like, I don't know, it's just an experience where it just makes you feel good. That's Before Sunset, and that whole trilogy is a very good place to look. I see one here. I'm gonna hold off because this actually was viewer recommended, so I'll hold off on that one. You'll see what I mean when we get to that later. I'll just start calling some out here, I think, right? I mean, might as well. The Green Room pops up. That's a big one. Pulp Fiction pops up. I didn't know that Pulp Fiction was indie, but that's what it comes up when I search indie movies. That's obviously a Quentin Tarantino directed movie. If you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, I feel like you have to. It's one of those movies where it's like a must-see. I would put, if I had some movies that fell under, like, you have to see this, I think Pulp Fiction is one. I think Good Will Hunting's another. I think a big one for, like, a must-see movie, I don't know if it's indie film, but I do think that, like, if we're talking about, like, what is a must-see movie, I think you have to include, like, Wizard of Oz comes up for me. I don't know if that's indie or not. Probably not. Actually, most definitely it's not, so forget I said that. But I stand by it. I still think it's a must-see, but it's... Florida Project is one here that I'm seeing that I have on my list. I haven't seen it, but I've been told many a times, you gotta go see Florida Project. You gotta look that up. Lady Bird here. If you're not wanting to go to the movies right now, you don't really feel the need to go see Barbie, I'm pretty sure Lady Bird was directed by Greta Gerwig, so you're getting your Greta fix, right? So that's something there. Let's keep looking here. What is that? Moonrise Kingdom pops up. I think it's Before Sunrise. Is Before Sunrise the first one on the trip? I think that's what no, it's, maybe it is. God darn it, I forget which one. But let's see, Junebird. I'm just gonna start. Moonlight is one. Didn't that win an Oscar? Or didn't it, like, what was that whole controversy? It was like La La Land versus Moonlight, and I'm pretty sure it was Moonlight that was, like, No. They said, oh, La La Land won Best Picture, and then they were like, actually, no, Moonlight won. Or was it the other way around? It may have been. I don't remember. I don't want to get that wrong, but that's okay. Romance, here's the thing. If we're talking like indie movies, I think something to consider is that when you're thinking like, okay, low budget, what type of movie is this going to be? You're not going to see a lot of science fiction. You might not even see a lot of action movies. You might see some, but you're not going to see a lot of indie movies that are action or action centered, I would say, because those are typically more high budget. You got to do your explosions, your gunshots, and all that stuff. That is you're not going to see as many of those. Indie movies tend to be geared more towards conversation. Very a big emphasis on the acting performances for sure. Dramas are big in this because it's pretty simple to do a contained story. I mean, just if we're talking contained, I see Spree on here. Spree is about as action oriented as you can get while also being a very contained story. If you haven't heard of Spree, I'm pretty sure it has Joe Keery, who plays Steve Harrington in Netflix in Stranger Things. And he is a murderer. I think he's a he's going on a killing spree, but it's also, he's like an Uber driver, I think. So it's a little play on that. But I'm pretty sure most of the movie takes place within just his car, which I think is a really cool concept. That reminds me of another movie that was made, that I'm pretty sure was an indie movie. What was it called again? I forget what it's called, but it had Tom Hardy in it. And Tom Hardy is basically the same thing, where most of the movie is just him in a car. So I think it's possible to do movies like that. You can't overdo certain things like that, which is also kind of sort of the fear with it. But a lot of these are very niche ideas. Or if you want to do a rom-com, rom-coms are typically very low budget. So those are often independent films as well, because it's not that difficult to fund. All you're really paying for is just the bare bones, the crew and the actors and stuff like that. That is what you're mostly paying. You're not paying for huge expensive sets. It's not usually what goes into it. So I will say Google is doing a little bit of a disservice, I feel like, because here's one that I see. Didn't Nomadland win Best Picture a couple years ago? I haven't seen that. I think for me it was a little slow, but the idea for a movie like Nomadland is very interesting because it's documentary-esque. It's a drama, but the movie itself is very low stakes, I feel, or based on what I know of it, it's not very big stakes. I'm looking at indie thrillers. If you're looking for an indie thriller, I haven't seen it, but The Machinist is very, very high up, just in general, on a movie that I really need to see. The Machinist has Christian Bale. I'm a huge Christian Bale fan. I love his acting. I love his work. I see Imitation Game. I see... Let's go through some more of the thrillers, because some of these I might want to see myself, to be honest. Wind River interests me. Reservoir Dogs. Okay, here's one that I've actually seen recently, and I can't believe it didn't pop into my head immediately. Reservoir Dogs is another one that's relatively contained. This is one of, Death Proof is Tarantino's first feature film, I think. And I'm pretty sure Reservoir Dogs was one of his first. But Reservoir Dogs, very, very good movie. If you haven't seen it, it's not really what I thought it was, but it's one of those movies that shows you little snippets of what happened. And it's actually, if you've seen what is it called, if you've seen Kaleidoscope on Netflix, I actually think Reservoir Dogs does what they're talking about way better. It's just more so the aftermath of a heist rather than what happens before. Reservoir Dogs is a very, very good movie on that basis. Not that long of a watch. I think it's like a little more than an hour and a half, back when movies didn't need to be 2.5 hours long in order to exist. What else we got here? Blair Witch Project. If you haven't seen the Blair Witch Project, that is an iconic horror movie that I feel like is exactly the type of indie movie that I'm talking about. It's a very unique concept, but there's something about it where it's so effective. Now, I think with the time that we have left in this segment, I'm going to go ahead, pull up my Instagram, and give some credit to some of the viewer recommended. Oh, okay. So this one I gotta pop up. I did see this and I was saving this. Little Miss Sunshine was one that I've got not once, but twice. It is an indie movie. I haven't seen it myself. I feel like I have to go check it out now because I've been recommended it twice just through this segment. I don't know what it's about, but I feel like that's what it's all. That's what movie watching is all about, right? You go in completely blind and you have a good time. Maybe I'll cry. It's what type of? It's a road indie movie. Okay, all right. We'll see what that. I don't know what it's about. I hope I'm not gonna sob my eye. Well, maybe I do. Sometimes going in for a nice cry is a good thing. We see Frances Ha as another movie that was recommended, and I've definitely heard of that. I forget who directed it. I'm gonna go ahead here and search Frances Ha. Is this a Greta Gerwig or no? Nope, it's not. It's Noah Baumbach. Baumbach. So that's another one that I'm gonna have to, from 2012. Less than an hour and a half. Is it okay? I don't know if this is an indie thing, but a lot of movies in this area are actually quite short. They're closer to an hour and a half, which I think it's interesting. Someone said, I don't know if this is an indie movie, but Old Boy. I've heard of Old Boy. I don't know for an absolute fact if it's indie, but I have heard good things about it, so who's to say? Here's one. Someone said, does Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind count? Yes, that absolutely counts, and I've heard so many great things about it. It's another dialogue-heavy movie, and it's Jim Carrey, as far as I'm aware, Jim Carrey doing a serious role, which comedians doing serious roles is something that I personally love. It's what I love about Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. He does such a good job with that as well, in just being able to have such a down-to-earth serious role, but also just something, I don't know, something so charming about it. We have Climax by Gaspar Noé, which again is another film that I don't know a lot about, but especially the person that recommended it, I know for a fact that this is indie. So if you're curious, I mean, I'm definitely curious. I'm gonna go and check that out probably. We also got My Own Private Idaho, which again, I did see. This is in fact an indie movie, and I think if you're curious about it, definitely go and check that out. And of course, we got one cheeky little viewer who said Raiders of the Lost Ark. That is not the type of indie I'm talking about. All right. You know who you are if you're listening. That you know who you are. That's not what I was talking about. But I'm gonna go over on Facebook and see if there's any other ones. Pretty sure there was one here. Mommy, directed by Xavier Dolan, is a... I don't know why I said mommy like that. If that gets clipped, I swear to God. But yeah, Mommy, directed by Xavier Dolan, is a Canadian film, a Canadian indie film. So if you're curious about any of those movies, definitely go and check them out. Again, independent films, I think right now especially, are sort of what we need just in the entertainment industry. We need to broaden our horizons on just, instead of just going and watching the same recycled stuff over and over again. Independent films do a great job of bringing very unique concepts and unique ideas to the forefront. So another one that just popped up in my head was Being John Malkovich is an indie film, I'm pretty sure. And that one is very interesting because it's such a bonkers idea of just being in, like, the whole, a lot of the movie is done in POV, and it's such a weird and interesting concept, and we need more of that. I think we definitely need more of that. Speaking of weird and crazy ideas, we're going to have an opportunity to come up with one of our own in the next and final segment. So if you want to check that out, don't go too far, because we're going to be right back. If you are enjoying the show so far, please remember to check out the episode playlist on Spotify. Also, leave a rating and subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. Wouldn't that be a shame? Break time's over. Time for the final part of the show. And we're back, and for this final segment, we're playing a game called My Movie, My Movie, and the general gist of it, we played it once or twice before on the show. The general gist is we're going to be randomly generating some suggestions, and from those suggestions, I am going to try to come up with an entirely new movie that has never been made up before. I'm going to be throwing it right out there on the fly, And you can let me know in the poll on Spotify. And I think, the poll on Spotify, let me know if you would watch this movie. I don't know what movie it's going to be yet. We don't know. I can tell you right now, I'm looking at a blank wall. Okay? I'm looking at a light green. I'm just going to get specific here. I'm looking at a light green wall. That's my inspiration. I got nothing. So, what should we go into, huh? What should we randomly generate that will help me figure out? Okay, let's figure this out. Who is this centered on? What let's describe our character. Okay? So, let's randomly generate a job. Okay, a school bus inspector. This is our get. So, a school bus inspector. What do we know about? Let's create an entire personality for this. I'm just gonna right on the fly here. Okay, school bus inspector. Jerry Connerfield. Jerry Connerfield. This is our main character, Jerry Connerfield. He's a school bus inspector, and I think school bus inspecting for me sounds like a job that may be a little tedious at times, maybe a little boring. So I think Jerry is gonna go, and maybe he's inspecting a school bus. He's just going his okay. Let's follow along with this movie, right? The opening credits start. He goes into a school bus. An empty school bus just in the lot. There's a whole line of school buses. He goes in. He takes a sample off the seat and he goes, okay, it's pretty clean. It's good. Okay. He goes into the next bus. All right. This seat's a little ripped up, but otherwise, there's nothing crazy going on. It's just the school bus at the end of the day. This one here. Oh, what's this? There's a little open bag of Grips Cheez-Its sitting on the seat. Other than that, nothing really crazy, okay? The credits are still rolling. I'm going to randomly generate a song. This is going to be playing over the opening credits. The Story of Us by Taylor Swift, okay? Oh, and there's a link to it. That's fantastic. Okay, so Taylor Swift, Story of Us. This song is playing over the opening credits of Jerry... What did I say? Jerry Connerfield? Jerry Connerfield is inspecting these school buses, and The Story of Us is playing. This is the story of Jerry O'Connor and his school buses. Maybe he's an inspector, but he also owns the school buses. Maybe this is his business. He is the renter of all these school buses. They go on field trips and stuff like that. But in the very last bus, as the song is ending, he goes and he sees one of the seat. It has a little peel in it. He says, "Interesting. Wonder what this is." He peels back the seat to find what? Nope. Okay. All right. I generated a word. I'll tell you what the word is, but I'm gonna pick a different one because wait. Can I spin this in any way that makes it not rated R? Or should I keep it? I feel like I have to go with it, but also I don't think this is a good idea. Okay, it says kitties. Okay? Kiddies. Is there any... I'm going to Google what that means because I'm hoping that there's a way I can spin this. A young child. No, okay. All right. All right. Oh, why did I do that? So, okay. Okay. He peels back and there's two children in the seat and they go, "Shh, shh. Hey, who are you?" And Jerry goes, "Who am I? Who are you? And what are you doing in the seat?" And these kids go, "Hey, we're playing a game of hide and go seek. Okay? We're playing a game of hide and go seek. We were on a field trip and we were at where were they? Let's randomly generate a location. They were in the break room, okay? They were in the break room and they were like, okay, during this break from the field trip, which it was a field trip to the beach. Perfect. Okay, that's exactly what I was looking for. It was a field trip to the beach, but they went to the break room to get away from the beach, I guess. Just go with the logic. They go to the beach, and they're like, okay, you know what? Really fun? We play a game of hide and go seek. So these two kids, they climb into the seat or into one of the areas of the bus and they say, we're gonna hide here and no one's gonna find us. We're gonna be totally fine. So now all of a sudden Jerry finds himself backed into a corner. He says, well, I don't really go anywhere because I'm a school bus inspector, and I, not making a generalization about school bus inspectors, that's not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to say is he doesn't live he lives a very tedious life. Or I'm making this character have a very tedious life. He finds these kids who were on a field trip to the beach, and they're hiding, and they realize, wait a second, are we not at the beach anymore? And Jerry goes, no, you're not. Where are you from? And he goes, well, we are from. I was gonna try to randomly generate a location, and then I thought about it, and I was like, I don't think that this is gonna give me like a place you can go, not like an actual geographical location. So let's just say, because lawyers' chambers, let's say that the kids are from a very early onset school for lawyers. These kids are gonna grow up to be lawyers. They are actually hyper intelligent children, and they said, you know what, we're never going to be found in the bus. We're going to cut open a place in this chair, and that's where we're going to go. And Jerry goes, no, you don't understand. You're in my school bus now. You have to go home. And they said, I'm sorry, Jerry, if that's your real name, we can't do that because our lawyer school that we came from is over 200 miles away. Now, obviously, I'm going to randomly generate an emotion. Jerry is feeling a sense of love. This fucking thing is really throwing me some curveballs here. And Jerry is in love with this idea because Jerry says, you know what? This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I can bring these kids back to school, and I can move away from my boring life, and I can go on an adventure for the first time in years. And then we learn some backstory, okay? There's a flashback about Jerry. We learn a little bit more about him. Jerry, who are you? Who are you? I'm gonna randomly generate a word here. The fuck does that mean? Chauvinistic? I don't know what that means. I swear to God, if this is another bad word, chauvinistic, what does that mean? Displaying excessive or prejudiced support for one's own cause or group, in particular showing... Oh my God. Why is it... Okay, sure. Jerry doesn't get out of the house a lot. So we see that back in the day, he was very against the idea of... is there a way for me to save this? I don't know. Why did it have to give me this word? Okay, so let's recap. So Jerry finds these two kids, and he's decided, okay, I'm going to bring them back to their lawyer school. And we get a flashback of Jerry. Why is it such a big deal for him that he's in love with this idea of, okay, you know what? Yes, for the first time, I get to go on an adventure. He shows an excessive support for a certain cause. I'm going to take that route with this. He shows an excessive amount of support for a hide and go seek. And he says, you know what? This is the best game ever. And maybe back in the day, he was a hide and seek champion. He was the best hide and seek player of all time. Jerry Connerfield. 100%. Oh, should the kids get names? Sure. Susie and Larry. All right. Sure. We'll go with that. Susie and Larry. He sees himself in them. He says, you know what? I appreciate the commitment that they have for this game of hide and go seek. So we see a montage of Jerry back in the day being the absolute hide and seek champion. And during this, what song is playing? Billie Eilish, What Was I Made For? And I think that this is perfect because he was made for hide and go seek. I'm telling you, he was made for hide and go seek. He was the best. There's a whole thing of him saying, you know, he's hiding in cupboards. He's hiding under the floorboards. He's hiding anywhere. He's hiding. He has a place in his bedroom that is like, if he were to ever play hide and go seek, that he would go there. It's like it's got like a little gaming setup. It's got a bunch of snacks, and this for him is his life. So okay, back out of the flashback, he says, you know what? I haven't had a chance to go and play hide and go seek in a while. These kids, I have to help them play this game of hide and go seek. So he's gonna go, and he's gonna take on this journey. Where's the first place that they go? They go to the lost city. He says, okay, I don't know where these kids are from, but we're going to the lost city together. We're going to the lost city, and we're gonna go. The lost city is. It has that name because this city has been playing a game of hide and go seek. Actually, this city is lost because no one has found it. No one has found it because no one is good enough at seeking. These Susie and Larry and Jerry Connerfield, they are so good at hiding in hide and go seek. This is their first opportunity to find something, and they're gonna find the lost city. So they're gonna go and travel. How does the travel make them feel? A sense of trust. They have a sense of trust in each other now. And we learn more about these characters. We learn that Susie is Cubbies? Actually, yeah, okay, random generate the word Cubbies. Susie is so neat that everything she has is organized in cubbies. Okay? She has in one cubby some rope, in another cubby like a grappling hook or something. These are all materials that are used to help her be the best hider in hide and go seek ever. Child prodigy. And we're talking about, if you want to talk about Susie, Larry, young little Larry, the word is prioritize. Larry, what else does he prioritize than being the best hider in the game? So they join forces and they're on their way. They're traveling to the lost city, and over this montage of them traveling is the song Pink Panthers by Boys a Liar, Part 2. I've never heard of that song, though, I will say, but that's okay, because it's playing in the background. And if you want to play along, by the way, just listen to these songs in the background as I'm describing what's happening. So they get almost to the lost city. They have to solve a puzzle, though. And they have to be able to have prior knowledge. I'm going to randomly generate a Wikipedia article here. They have to know the ins and outs of Channel 5. The web channel. They have to know Channel 5 because Channel 5 is exactly where all this information was stored. All the information to know how to get to the Lost City was encrypted in a news outlet in Channel 5. And of course, being stuck in the bus inspection agency, Jerry Connerfield is well versed in Channel 5, and he says, you know what? I know this. What Channel 5 is trying to get us to do is to say a certain phrase. That's what they want. So, and the phrase that they end up picking, I'm going to randomly generate a line from Moby Dick. I worship thee. I worship thee is the line that they all must say in unison, and then the lost city will appear. I worship thee, and boom, the lost city appears. It's glistening. This bestows a certain emotion for these characters. They feel a sense of apprehension because they said, you know what, that was too easy. That was too easy. I worship thee is too simple of a phrase. There's no way it could just be simple as that. So what do? Well, we go inside the lost city, of course. They walk in. And what is the first thing that they see? They see teensy. Teensy? That's an adjective. Let me get a noun. They see teensy. Teensy things that are enjoying and reiterating rascals. So they're little rascals. They're teensy rascals, not to be confused with by Little Rascals, the movie with Alfalfa. These are teensy rascals, and they are reiterating the same phrase from Moby Dick. They're reiterating paint. 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 They're just saying paint over and over again. And Susie and Larry, I'm getting to the end of the movie, don't worry. They're saying, what does this mean? What does this mean? Paint what? And Jerry Connerfield says, let me paint you a picture. I'm going to paint you a picture of a certain location. That location is going to be a ski lodge. We're looking at the ski lodge and we're saying, look at that. Look at the ski lodge. That is the best place to go for hide and go seek. So once they leave the Lost City, because they were there to kind of learn more about themselves, that's the type of movie that this is, they go to said ski lodge, and then they realize that that is exactly where the lawyer school was. The lawyer school took place at a ski lodge. And while they were there, of course, they played one last game of hide and go seek, and everyone was having a great time. Everyone was feeling trust. They were feeling trust in one another because that's what the trust was the journey along the way. Not only did they find the Lost City, but they found trust. And as the movie ends, everyone's happy, and the credits, the end credits start, and the song, "The Story of Us" by Taylor Swift. Once again, what didn't that already generate in here? Sure, okay, "The Story of Us." That song plays again, fittingly, at the end, and that is my movie. And the title of my movie, I'm gonna randomly generate a line from Moby Dick. "To the masthead to get some fresh air, some thinking they would catch." That is the title of... No, let's just go, I don't know. Fresh air. Right? No, let's, you know what, I think it's better if we just use the whole thing. "To the masthead to get some fresh air." Boom. Actually, no. The second part of that is a way better movie title. "Some thinking they would catch." Boom. That is the movie. Directed by James Senna. I hope you all enjoy. Would you see this movie? Tell me, let me know in the would you see this movie? Who would play these characters? There's no randomly generated actors on here. Who would you like to see play these characters? Let me know in the comments below. And that's going to be it for this episode as we make our way over to the outro. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cinema Spotlight. Definitely a different episode than what we're used to, but I hope it was enjoyable nonetheless. Next episode, we're going to be joined by a guest that brought the chaos. So if you're a fan of chaotic podcasts, definitely you're going to want to tune into the next one. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and if you could take a moment to subscribe to the show on whichever platform you're listening on, I would greatly appreciate it. Be sure to follow our official Instagram at @the_cinema_spotlight for updates on whenever new episodes get released. I'll go ahead and shut the spotlight off for now, but until next time, stay classy, friends.